Thank you, yes, so much for coming out the other day.
You're
And
welcome.
I've heard you say, somebody said that every day there are more and more things you could talk about. Every day there's
Right.
something new. You can watch a TV show, something new triggers about this whole thing that happened with your daughter and your granddaughter. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Excuse me. Um, yes, it's a story that has no ending. And I mean, each one of these parents could write a book. Um, I think in the majority of cases, definitely in ours, it was fixed from the very start.
Right.
It was fixed from the very start. And my husband is a very wise man. And he said, with the influence their family has in their small town where they've been there for so many generations, it will never go in your favor.
Yeah.
And actually her ex told her laughingly that there was no judge in that area that would rule against his family
Yeah.
because they're so influential.
Because of their, yeah.
Right, and so we saw, but my daughter was confident that, well, she never exposed any abuse before the actual divorce
Right.
went to court. She says, because if I did, she says, if I shamed the family or her ex, she says it would be,
Even worse.
yes, it would not go well,
Yeah.
with the family, and they would destroy her.
Yeah.
So no mention of abuse or anything like that, was,
Yeah.
mentioned in the very beginning. But as the case went along, then,
It came out.
she got into that as well. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even what they did was abusive in a sense that they could silence her. That is another form of abuse like that. But what I hear you saying is that you no longer have a trust that justice will take place and
No.
that justice is blind. Justice,
No.
one person said it, that you get as much justice as you can pay for, as much justice as you can afford. Do you kind
Right.
of agree with that?
I definitely do, because like I told you before, I was present in most of these trials.
Right.
Especially at the very beginning. But then after a while, I realized that it did not matter, the evidence, and my daughter 6 months later.
Yeah.
And mind you, I think I told you that the conditions were that she had to be heard within 10 days, and never
Yeah.
happened.
It never
It was
happened.
not until 6 months later, after many private chamber, meetings between the two lawyers.
Yeah. Apart from the clients being there, just the attorneys hashing out what they wanted to.
Right, because we had attorneys, we kept switching attorneys, and they were all fired up in the beginning, saying that they would represent you and you would be, you would get justice immediately. But as soon as they went into court, the judge would be sitting there, and they're in private chambers,
Yeah.
the two attorneys, and they come out with all of these decisions. So like I said, my daughter never spoke until 6 months later.
Yeah.
And one particular time, her lawyer went in with all kinds of contempt of court on her ex. She came out dismissing everything.
Yeah.
That she.
How many
was-
counts of contempt did she have? This is what you've just talked about is something that I hear frequently, that judges routinely can dismiss not just contempt charges. It depends on the judge, but they like in Texas we have interference with child custody. It can be penalized as a felony, and judges dismiss this
They are
routinely.
felonies.
Yes, yeah. And there's one man on city council in a city nearby here, well, in South Lake. He had 16 charges like that filed against him. Judge Judith Wells, who recently ran for re-election for the Republican nomination, and now will be running again this upcoming November as that candidate. She dismissed 16 felony charges, interference with child visitation, and then also gave the person who was committing these crimes the children, and made the person who was complaining about the crimes pay child support.
Oh, well, that's the case in every case, you know? I mean, I don't know who it was. I think it was Don Rafferty, who has been fighting this for years.
Don is wonderful. I love Don.
I think he said that he had an uncle that was a judge, and he says, when you come to my courtroom, if it is Tuesday and I say it's Monday, it's no longer Tuesday. It's what I say in my courtroom. So, you know, it's like a circus.
It is a circus.
I had so much
that's
respect.
very, yeah, go ahead, continue, I'm sorry.
I had so much respect for the judicial system and the law. You know, I grew up watching Perry Mason all my life, you know, thinking justice eventually, you know, comes out. And when I went into court, I was just shocked.
Yes.
I was shocked. And this is why I started researching the laws in North Carolina, you know, wondering, you know, is this the way this is decided? And I found out that everything that was decided was really contrary to what should have been decided.
Yeah.
And even the child support was established without my daughter's presence.
Yeah. Does she have to pay child support?
Yes.
She has to pay child support as well?
Of course, yes. And this is very common, you know?
Yeah, but, and see, this is the part that gets me up. Now, you said she went bankrupt because of this whole thing.
Right.
She filed for bankruptcy. Here's a
No, she did not file.
Oh, she didn't file for bankruptcy.
She just
went bankrupt.
And then we started helping her and ended up spending a lot of money.
You told me $150,000.
You know, legal fees and other you know, things involved with it.
You told me $150,000, but evidently $150,000 was not able to touch.
Right. Yes.
Was not able to buy the justice that the other family could buy.
Well, and you know, like I said before, she finally spoke at 6 months, and the little evidence that they allowed her to present was so powerful that the judge took the opportunity to recuse herself because she didn't know, you know, she couldn't really go against that evidence.
Yeah.
And dismissed it and started all new, and a new judge came in, which was judge shopping.
You've talked about so many issues. I mean, you've mentioned so many potential issues. You've talked about the child support issue. I've got to, you know, what people don't understand with this child support, well, of course somebody should pay child support. Here is a person who files for divorce, who is guilty because he's running around with somebody else, but he uses no-fault divorce to get a divorce. His family is influential. They buy the judge. They buy the attorneys. He gets the children, which he didn't even want, but he gets the children for his father so that your granddaughter can be with his father. And your daughter, who is a superb mother, does not get to see the child except for just a few days a month, from what I understand. She pays child support. She is somebody who's been out of the workforce. I know of another person here. She was making $30,000 a year. Her ex-husband, the person that I told you about, that Judith Wells ruled in favor of, he was making, I believe it was over $400,000 a year. And everybody knew he was at fault. And he committed these criminal acts. And Judge Judith Wells made my friend pay him child support. After also, basically, she was bankrupt as well.
Right.
And this whole thing, this thing about justice being blind, it is not blind.